Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Vigilante 1939 podcast, a vidcast today. We're doing two forms today. This is the video one. There's one on audio as well. We are a DC-leaning podcast, but of course we talk about all good things, Marvel, Star Wars, and anything else that crosses the plane. I'm going to be your co-host today. My name is Nikko Caruso, and to my right I have my father, Nick Caruso Jr. Dad, how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
And across from me, I got Zeddy, my PIC, Mr. Nick Zennick. How are you today?
Masterful. How are you guys doing?
Love to hear that. I'm happy to be here. We've been waiting a long time to talk about this movie. If you've already been following us or if you're just joining us for the first time, we saw this movie earlier in the week on Monday. We did some quick spoiler-free thoughts, about a 20-minute show that is available on YouTube where you're watching this right now. And then we saw it again last night, and we are doing a full spoiler, full breakdown of the Batman. So I'm going to stop you right now. If you haven't seen the movie, we're releasing this on the day it comes out. So go watch that. If you want spoilers, come watch this. But for now, if you have not seen the Batman, we're going to go right in the spoilers right away. You've been warned. But while you're trying to make up in your mind if you're going to stay or not, because if we haven't scared you away yet, please, you are on YouTube right now. Please like, subscribe, please comment as well. It helps us. And if you're interested in this video and want more of us, there are a couple of shows we do through the week. We're going to do these for more movies in the future, but we have a main podcast as well that you could find anywhere you get your podcast at the Vigilante 1939. We got a store on TeePublic as well. So just to get all that stuff out of the way, those were the housekeeping things. Now we could just go full vengeance, full 100% of the time. So the first thing I want to talk about, and we're going full spoilers. Like I said, the first thing I want to talk about is the story. So Dad, I'm going to turn over to you first as the OG Batman fan here, as the one who kind of created the inception to like Batman and me. You have now seen so many different versions of this character, so many Batman stories on screen, going back from the classic Adam West show to the Tim Burton stuff, the Val Kilmer stuff, the really grounded feel of Christopher Nolan, and then the really more comic book yet really Dark Knight Returns-esque vision that Snyder was going. So they chose to tell a story. It's very serial killer meets Batman. It's very Batman meets Seven, Chinatown, Zodiac. Mm-hmm. How did this story work for you? And you talk about anything you want involving the story.
Well, first of all, if Spider-Man saved cinema with No Way Home, the Batman and Matt Reeves defined cinema. Because this is, for all practical purposes, a classic noir film, we like to call it that, with Batman in it. But it works perfectly. It is something that we have not seen before, which going into the movie, I was a little skeptical, right? Because we did get Burton's kind of fantastical world, and we did get the zany stuff with Joel Schumacher. We got the very grounded, filmed here in Chicago, Dark Knight trilogy. And then I think Snyder gave us a really great comic book Batman. So I'm like, what are we going to get with this movie? And it was, everyone was saying it was like David Fincher. It was going to be, but till we saw it, nobody really knew. But now we know that we got the very best in filmmaking. Matt Reeves accomplishes something as a visionary, as a storyteller, to where it's the melding of both worlds. It's a comic book graphic novel come to life. Just beautifully portrayed, acted, written, and it looks fantastic, and the score is great. So that's my long way of saying the story is incredible. The story is riveting. It is suspenseful. It keeps you on the edge of your seat. It is a detective story. You play along with it. It's gruesome at times. I mean, there's literally nothing that this story does not have in it. For any kind of a movie, not just a comic book movie, but for a suspense-filled movie such as this, it has everything.
You said something I like when you said it really brings him back to his detective roots, and you also said we haven't gotten a Batman film like this before. I agree. It puts you in the psyche of the character, his intelligence. It tests him. It reminds me of a story like The Long Halloween, the Arkham video games. It's definitely not the type of Batman film we've seen before. And that was very fresh, very fresh in my humble opinion. So Zeddy, I want to also throw this to you as someone who's been following the film since its inception, since we started doing this podcast. Tell me what you thought of the story of the film. We're using words like noir, crime, thriller. There are comparisons like Seven, Zodiac, Chinatown, etc. So what did you think of this story and the way it unfolds as this very manageable 3 hours?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, this thing for me is a technical wonder, achievement, whatever you want to say. It really might be the most gorgeous looking Batman movie, I'll say. I mean, some of the shots that Matt Reeves uses just to tell his story completely blew me away. But as far as the actual story itself, yeah, man, it like really goes back to like these 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s kind of mid 70s kind of type of noir, slow burn type of crime detective movies, right? So it's a very different Batman movie. You know, like I'd say Batman Begins was probably the most comic booky out of the trilogy. You know, The Dark Knight is very detective driven, or some saying, well, you can take Batman out of that movie and it kind of still works as a movie on its own. And The Dark Knight Rises kind of served as an ending, right? But none of them were as dialogue heavy as this movie is. I mean, you're really it's almost like how I approached it was it's like a bird's eye view of like every character. Like the movie opens up with somebody that you didn't know, but then we find out is the Riddler, right? And you're like in his perspective, and then you jump into Bruce Wayne's perspective, and then you get Selena Kyle's perspective. So it's just a movie of perspective, and I truly should not have expected anything other than any different from Matt Reeves. I mean, you watch a movie like Let Me In that he directed, and you see how close and personal and how tension heavy that movie is, right? And this thing definitely takes its time building to its tension, but the story I deeply appreciate it because, like Mr. C said, I know I'm rambling here a little bit, but it really does take him back to his detective roots. And as somebody that really does prefer that type of Batman, detective comics Batman, this was a dream for me. To get scenes of like Batman and Commissioner Gordon solving cases together. Them interrogating Penguin, which is an awesome scene. Just Bruce inner monologuing himself, walking through crime scenes. It's amazing what Matt Reeves pulled off, and you can argue whether or not he took 5 years just for this one story, but you can't say that he didn't pull from a lot of source material, a lot of really great source material, and as a fan, that made me really happy. So the story is nearly flawless for me. Some nitpicks here and there, but we'll get to that. It didn't break the movie for me.
Yeah, I would say I like a lot of what you said. I forget who I was telling this to, but in a way, even though this film uses modern social media and technology, and of course all the technical aspect is of 2022, the movie does feel timeless in a way. Especially with parts of the score like Catwoman's that feel very retro crime thriller films. It's a classic detective story with a serial killer. I could imagine this film as a black and white film in the 40s with a detective playing a role as the Batman. It just so happens to be a Batman film here, and that is the character's roots. I would say it is a very slow burn, intentionally paced film, but not once did my attention wane through 2 viewings now. I think the way Matt Reeves and, like you said, Zeddy uses visuals to tell the story as well. You're kind of locked in every piece of the puzzle, trying to guess. The movie does, from a narrative standpoint, get a little exposition heavy towards the end of towards the end of the second act, beginning of the third act, where all this time we're spent trying to figure it out. Then the characters just start telling you every single thing you need to know. And when the big reveal happens, to me, it's a little more simple. This big riddle that was trying to be, how do you prove a riddle? Answered. I think there's
Solved.
solved. I think there's more to come. I think this is a riddle that might span the whole trilogy because it definitely ends up being pretty simple. Bad guy with bombs, which doesn't take away from the story at all because the first 2 acts, the way it builds, are so masterful. But I want to ask you, Dad, did when it started? So it starts. It's very 7S. There's a killer.
Yeah.
There's death. There are clues. There's pieces you're trying to figure out, and it keeps unweaving. Characters die. There's other layers. How did you feel about when it transitions to the Waynes being involved? There was a lot of talk before the movie. Was it going to be like the Telltale games? Was it going to be like what Joker tried to do, where it kind of painted the Waynes as bad people? There's a pretty gray area of Thomas Wayne's actions here, which I found interesting.
Well, I don't play the video games or anything like that, so that stuff's kind of alien to me. And I do know, I mean, obviously we saw the Joker, the great movie by Todd Phillips with Joaquin. Here's the thing, real quickly. You talk about how it starts very gruesome, terrifying. And then the subtlety with which the entrance, well, at least when Gordon and Batman are together, I've never seen any actor play that the way Pattinson plays Batman.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely magnificent. He doesn't even need dialogue. His one-word answers, his stare, it's no one's done it better. I'm sorry. Nobody. Bale, Keaton, any of them. The thing with the Waynes, to me, going into the movie, we kind of knew a little bit that this might happen. I didn't like it going in. Coming out, I love it.
Well, to me,
it's different.
But to me, though,
it's different.
But to me, though, it's not even. So for me, it's not clear, which I like. At the same time, though, I think it's a really interesting story point that does not have room to breathe and is not shown. This is my one of two big critiques I'll say in the film today is we see it on the Riddler's news cycle about, it's pulled right from Earth 2, that she was in Arkham and the Arkham and the Wayne families were united because of their marriage, and her mom was a psycho, killed her husband, killed herself, and that Martha Wayne herself had some psychic issues, had some mental issues, which kind of plays into this version of Bruce, which is very interesting because he is clearly mentally unwell at times. Every fight feels personal. What he's doing feels like this blind ambition, this blind fate. And at the end of the movie, he figures out, what he has to do. He has to be more than just vengeance in this mask. So it's very interesting that they're using that for the Waynes. My thing is they set it up. Carmine Falcone, immediately after that 5-minute news thing by the Riddler, we go right to Bruce talking to Carmine Falcone, played by the wonderful John Turturro. And Carmine Falcone basically gives him a monologue about what he did for his dad. Bruce then goes directly to Alfred, who gets a similar monologue, but told actually it wasn't quite that. He was more so protecting your mom. Fast forward, another monologue later in the film, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like they quickly set up that Wayne piece that, hey, maybe Thomas Wayne did something bad, and then they quickly undo it to, no, maybe it was good, maybe it was just a gray area thing, which I kind of wish there was some Zeddy talked about this on the way home the night we saw it. Maybe if they show Carmine getting healed by Thomas Wayne at the start of the film would have played into that reveal more, because it's like, hey, here's the Waynes are bad. Actually, they might be gray, they might be good, and that's it. Let's keep moving. Whereas I think they could have fleshed it out more. Zeddy, as someone who brought this up in the car, how do you feel about that, seeing it twice now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm like with Mr. C on this one. I think we had kind of anticipated that Reeves might try to toy around with the origin here without actually really doing the origin, and as far as making, the Waynes not as squeaky clean, I would say, a few years ago, I might have not been for it, but I think I'm a little for it now, and I think because clearly you see that Reeves had a distinct vision to tie it up. It's not just Thomas Wayne is dirty because Bruce Wayne has to be better than him, right? Like, it actually has a purpose toward his story, I would imagine. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. It's probably the one main gripe with the story I have is that kind of middle to end second act where it's, like you said, Nikko, one monologue after the other, and that is a pretty big reveal. Like when you find out John Turturro's Carmine Falcone, helped Thomas Wayne cover up a murder, and then it's like, because that is a lot to take in, especially when you're almost 2 hours into the movie and you get a big reveal like that, and that's Batman's overall purpose is to try to solve that now. So it is a lot, and I think by showing that either in the beginning of the movie, instead of that Riddler scene, which is like spectacular, but I probably would have opened a scene like that, because my issue is if you're not a fan of The Long Halloween or have never read The Long Halloween, I'm not quite sure you pick up on that, right? Because there's several moments in the film where I'm like, man, he pulled from The Long Halloween. That's awesome, man. That's a scene from year one. That's amazing, right? But if you're not somebody that's read that, it probably doesn't hit as much, right? Like for me, I thought that was awesome because I was like, man, he's pulling from The Long Halloween. That's incredible. But I think that's a classic case of you needed to show me and tell me as opposed to just tell me and not show me. Because I think that's where I'm at on that one.
And I think that's the other thing too is it's unlike a Seven and unlike a Zodiac, they're kind of teasing a big twist that doesn't necessarily happen, which does not take away from the movie for me because the reveal of the bombs in the vans at the end that sets up the big epic third act fight is cool, and it is pretty big because it does show that even though he's the world's greatest detective, we see the Riddler gets him. Batman makes a mistake. He needs to get better. He needs to grow from this because he missed the one piece, the carpet, and a real change, the city plan, the vans. He misses that one thing, which leads to the events in the third act. I just feel like from a narrative standpoint of this big Riddler thing, I feel like the Waynes could have been the big twist that they were bad. And let's explore the gray actions in a different film in the sequel. I feel like it's quickly undone. So any last thoughts on that?
No, I don't have a big a problem with that as you guys do, because this is something sometimes in life, you get hit with something, right, about your family, and you've got to take that stuff in and you've got to deal with it and you've got to decide in your own mind, and so Batman does that, right? And he goes forward and he doesn't still really know completely what to believe. And maybe that's why he's thrown off a little bit at the end there. And he's got a lot of stuff on his mind. A lot of pressure on this young man. He's only in his second year as Batman. So yeah. I kind of thought that was cool. I like that he missed that. And I like that the Riddler, that fantastic scene, that monologue that Paul Dano does, which is one of the greatest monologues I've seen a villain do or a character like that, because his sadistic and evil and cruel and cunning that he was, I almost felt some empathy at that scene there when he talks about being an orphan and the Bruce Wayne stuff. So I don't have as big a problem with that as you guys did. I think that if they want to explore that going forward, how that affects him, I think they will. But by the same token, if they just move on from that story, I'm not sure. Like Nick says, I think there's stuff set up in this movie to go forward.
Yeah.
It could be a standalone, right? But I think we're all pretty confident that box office wise, critical reception wise, that there's going to be another one. And I think that Mr. Reeves plants some seeds in this movie here, and they're all not sprouting just yet. They're coming.
And that's the hope. So to shift over to the characters a little bit, because there are a lot of them, and it is a star-studded cast as well. And I think one thing I really love about this film is everyone does have a purpose. One thing that sometimes happens is when you have a loaded cast in a film, some characters fall by the wayside. Some feel like they were just there for a cameo or to cash a check. But even starting with Robert Pattinson all the way down to Peter Sarsgaard's Gil Coulson, they all have something pretty integral to do to the plot. So, of course, I think the biggest question mark going into this movie was how is Robert Pattinson going to be, right? And Zeddy, I'm going to let you start with this one. Is how was Robert Pattinson, both as Batman and Bruce Wayne, in your opinion? Because while they are the same character in all the iterations we've seen before, the way they play both entities has been very different over the years. So what did you think of this new take and this new, quite literally, this new animal by Robert Pattinson?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, if you've seen a movie, these are two very distinct characters, and I want to use that word character because that's what I think is the best way to describe Bruce Wayne and Batman in this movie, is that they're two separate characters. Like, Bruce Wayne isn't the same as Batman when he's not in the cowl, and kind of vice versa. But I thought Pattinson was excellent, man. I gotta say, if you're gonna judge this movie from a pure Batman perspective, I think we might have the definitive version. And I'm not even being hyperbolic when I say that. I know you said that too, Mr. C. Seeing it twice, I mean, the way that he emotes in the cowl, the way that he just commands himself when he walks. I mean, sure, it's all about direction, right? But he just like fits Batman. Like it's really hard to say anything other than that. And I'll be honest with you, was I looking a little bit more from his Bruce Wayne character? Sure. It is a very integral part that you nail both aspects, but I know we were kind of talking a little bit, off air too, and I think you're gonna get that. But I think you just kind of have to be patient. Because I think he definitely explores certain characters a different way in this movie, and I think it could be a little frustrating that his Bruce Wayne maybe not be as fully developed as his Batman. But I think I remember I said when we kind of first started the show that I think Reeves didn't cast Pattinson for Bruce Wayne. He casted him for Batman. And I think when you watch this movie, it's pretty evident why he does that.
Yeah, man. Listen, when I first saw his Bruce Wayne, I'm like everybody else. I said the long hair, the emo Bruce Wayne. We know the Kurt Cobain, Nirvana music. Look, man, I'm just telling you guys, I've seen a lot of Batman, a lot of Bruce Wayne. His Bruce Wayne is brilliant here because this movie is not about Bruce Wayne. It's about Batman. He doesn't even know who he is as Bruce Wayne. He's completely lost. His persona through this whole movie is vengeance. He is vengeance. He is Batman. He's trying to figure things out. He's getting hit with a lot of stuff. I don't mean to shortcut it like that, but that's essentially what's happening to this young man. He's so his Bruce Wayne to me is absolutely fascinating because at the end of the movie, it's starting to come to him that vengeance isn't enough. Vengeance really isn't the answer. And I think we're going to get the Bruce Wayne. I'd be surprised in the next movie if his hair isn't cut a little better and it's a little more like, tidy, it looks a little neater, a little tighter, if you will. And if he's not maybe a little bit more flamboyant and outgoing and maybe going to scratch the surface a little bit of that Playboy persona, or at least of that, benefactor, that someone that does good. Right. So I will not tell you anything about Robert Pattinson in this movie other than that he was incredible in every scene that he was in. And I've never seen a Batman act with his eyes the way that this young man does. Mm-hmm. It is better than anybody. I'm going to say this. I look at Michael Keaton in 89 and he's the original and we all pay homage to him at that. But is there anybody that really doesn't think that Val Kilmer or George Clooney couldn't have switched places with him in that 89 movie and been the same?
That's a good take.
I argue that with you guys. Really. Keaton's a 5'10" regular guy, comedian. I mean, you could interplace a little bit. I will tell you, Bale. I think Pattinson could have did Bale's. Affleck's is a little different, but I don't think anybody that's played Batman up to this point could do what this young man did with the role here. And that's why, for me, after 2 viewings, he's the definitive Batman for me.
Well, okay. Well, it looks like the sparkly vampire pulled it off after all. For me,
I knew it too. You know what? When I took my daughter, I don't know how many years ago was that to see Twilight. I saw it in him. I knew it. I predicted it. No, just kidding.
I was going to say, there's no way in hell he did that. No way in hell that happened. There's no way in hell that happened. So here's my thing.
Didn't I tell you when I came home? He's going to play Batman in about 13 years.
I don't remember. Sorry. Also 13 years.
How many years ago is it? I don't even know.
I don't even know how long ago Twilight was.
It's been a long time.
So someone's got to look at that for us. So anyway, for Rob Pattinson, for me, he was born to play Batman in costume. He was born to play Batman in costume. I think we haven't seen a Batman in costume this much in a movie. He's probably in the costume 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2.5 hours.
More than what?
Probably more than the Dark Knight trilogy put together. I'll really be honest with you.
More than the Snyder Cut and BVS.
Yeah, probably in this one
more
movie.
Than the 4 previous movies in the 80s.
Well, when you put all those together, it's like 90 million hours. But like comparing things directly.
Yeah.
Comparing things directly, in costume, he's great. Like my dad said, his acting with his eyes. He has this massive presence when he walks, and you could hear his boots. It feels like a Western. Yeah, like it's like the Lone Ranger or the sheriff showing up. But also his presence is felt. All all the people on the street, they're afraid of him in the shadow. So I think he really owns Batman. He's a man of few words. His chemistry with Gordon and Catwoman is fantastic as well in costume. It's hard for me to say he's the definitive Batman yet, because I do think I need to see more from the Bruce Wayne. I agree with my dad. This version of Bruce Wayne is brilliant. It's the first time on film, I also believe, going back to the idea, we haven't seen a Batman film like this before, is we're focusing on Batman first instead of Bruce Wayne first. And Bruce Wayne is the mask and is the other entity in here, which is very, very cool to explore. And I think the movie is poetic in the way of he's going to have to become Bruce Wayne. The other films are he has to become Batman and become this hero. Like, that's what the Nolan trilogy is about, is literally becoming the hero Gotham deserves. And then he doesn't achieve that.
And then leaving him.
Yeah. Yes. And then it doesn't.
Completing it.
Yes.
Right.
So he has the Batman thing almost figured out. He just has to fine tune some of the detective skills, some of the physicality, but it's a Bruce Wayne he has to figure out. But I do need to see more from the Bruce Wayne, because I do feel like he was a little cold. There wasn't the emotional connection I thought I was going to have with his narrative. My emotion in this movie came from visuals, the score, from set pieces. It did not come necessarily longing. I kind of felt for the scarred mask of Batman than I did for this Bruce, because we didn't see him enough. I'm curious to see how he helps rebuild Gotham, because that could be something we haven't seen before, and that is incredible.
The funeral scene alone.
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne. Come on, man.
What?
He was incredible as Bruce Wayne in the funeral scene.
But you're missing my point.
But he's still Batman. I get it.
You're missing my point. He's walking. He's scanning the room. He's Batman.
He's still Batman.
You see Flash is also a great way to tell his origin without showing it. Is at the beginning when he sees the kid and something in the way starts playing, because that's what's in the way.
That hit home. Huh?
What a great way. But that's the only. So there's the emotional connection that I still think the audience needs for Bruce Wayne. For Batman, it's there.
You know what was the most disappointing thing about the film? To be honest with you, as I've seen it twice now, that they didn't show Thomas and Martha get killed.
Well, here's what's funny. Here is what's funny, though. No, that brings up a good point. Here's what's funny, though, and I hate to backtrack. That makes the narrative piece of them maybe being corrupt better if you see them a little bit. It's so ironic.
Yeah.
It's so ironic.
Yeah.
He shows them the most.
Wayne, that makes it hit harder, because it's once again, it's this off-screen just monologues of, I'm supposed to feel for Bruce, yet we really didn't see a moment of him and his dad or why that mattered. When this movie starts, he just tells you he cares about his parents.
Yeah.
It's I'm telling you, it's the one thing.
I didn't need that. We've seen that. We know that. Everybody knows that.
But when you're going to use
my
it,
dog knows that.
But hold on, when you're going to use it as a narrative piece,
Sully knows that.
Zeddy's got the quote of the day.
He's seen enough Batman films in the house to know what happens.
Zeddy's got the quote of the day, though. Show me, don't tell me. And they did a whole lot of telling about the Waynes. If you're going to use them as a big narrative reveal, I think you have to see him a little bit. Which did I want to see the murder again? No, but that doesn't mean we don't see Thomas or Martha Wayne. This guy, he's going to aggravate me because he thinks we ramble. Yet he has the longest. I'm counting. He talks longer than both of us, and then gets mad when we start talking. Zoe Kravitz's Catwoman, I think, was one of the most anticipated castings for people, including myself. I think she absolutely. Hold on.
Yeah.
I think she absolutely nails it. She's got the most character development of a Selena, in my opinion, because she actually starts somewhere, and she's trying to. It's not this basic stereotypical sexy thief, right? She actually has a purpose. She's trying to stand up for the little people in Gotham and take down the crime underlords. So Zeddy, what do you think Zoe Kravitz did as Catwoman?
I have to use this pun because there's just no other way to go around it, but she was perfect.
You mean perfect?
She was perfect. She was perfect in the movie. She was perfect next to Pattinson, I gotta say. I mean, her and Batman next to each other doing their thing. That was awesome, man. Might be the most comic accurate version of Catwoman. Gotta say, man, there were some panels from year one that were pretty damn awesome to see come to screen like that. Massive kudos to Reeves for that one. But yeah, her arc was pretty cool, and I dig the Bat and the Cat has a nice ring to it, right? Because that was the kind of overarching thing in the film, right? And then you kind of get this beautiful poetic thing of, she wants him to leave. She wants to leave with him. He can't leave Gotham. Will they ever see each other again? The way that it ends is beautiful in my opinion. But I dig especially that it was so accurate that is she a hero? Is she a villain? Is she going to help him? And then she does. So to me, I think she definitely nails the whole animalistic thing vibes of Catwoman. And I think she makes Catwoman a character. I know I'm using that a lot, but the way that he kind of fleshes her out throughout the movie, I thought was amazing. And if you have any reservations about Zoe Kravitz in this role, unreserve them because she's amazing.
I'm not going to speak to you. Tell me to.
Oh, go.
Physically, emotionally,
He is not
visually,
translating to the screen well. It's not going to
she
play well.
is.
This guy can't do it on screen.
She is the most comic accurate Catwoman. I'm not going to sit here and go on a big monologue how great she is. She's so good that you're going to love her when she gets her HBO Max series and really defines her as Catwoman. This young lady, like her mannerisms, she's Catwoman.
Yeah, she was my favorite casting She was my favorite casting going into the film. One I actually called if you go back on Twitter.
You did.
Back in 2017.
You did call that. You actually championed it.
I really championed it, and I was a lot of people right after she got cast wanted us to go back to Isa Gonzalez or Ana de Armas, and I was saying, well, first of all, the both of them don't have the chops that Kravitz has. First of all,
well,
but
what if they're watching? Sorry, ladies.
Sorry, you don't. I'm sorry, no disrespect, you don't, and we're seeing why too. I want to shift over to Paul Dano too, because it's a very different Riddler. Very different Riddler here.
You're saving him next? You're going to him next?
Yeah, I'm going to him next. So a very different Riddler, a very scary Riddler, whose presence is felt a lot without seeing him. Man, this is not Jim Carrey in spandex. He's my favorite performance of the movie too. He makes some really interesting choices with his different voices. I think the trailers did a good job of subduing him. I think the trailer showed a lot of one voice, scary, creepy, creepy, sadistic. But man, when he's playing, he's kind of comical. He's got the riddles. He's changing his voice like this. And he's doing a lot of stuff like that. And then when he takes the mask off, he's a completely different character. Going back, and it's this awesome duality with him and with the Riddler and his mask, Bruce and Batman. And when he tells him he thought that they were doing it together, that scene hits hard. So Zeddy, Paul Dano for you.
Yeah, best performance in the movie for me by far. The Riddler is my favorite Batman villain of all time. So, when I saw that this was going to be a more proper, sadistic, maniacal, just messing with Batman's psyche type of villain, I was all in, man. And Paul Dano is one of the greatest modern actors, of this generation. I will stand by that. To me, there's not a bad performance. I see that guy pull in. It's amazing. Two different people. Obviously, is very distinct when he's in a movie. I mean, when he's in that coffee shop, he's like a regular guy, guys. It was scary the way that they were just unsure of who he is, right? And then when he sees Batman, he just smiles at him, and I'm like, oh my god! But that scene in Arkham, man, when he's baiting him, and then Batman doesn't know whether or not to take it, and then he actually does, and then you see the switch in Dano's performance. I mean, not better than the interrogation scene, but my god, I mean, for me, this is a villain that is up there with Ledger's Joker for me. The way that he really messes with Batman the whole movie. Yeah, I'm gonna stand by that because I've not seen anything like that before.
Seeing a lot of that.
I
love you, bro. I respectfully disagree.
I'm not gonna say he's not better than Ledger's Joker, but up there in the performance.
You said he's standing with him. Those were the words. He ain't on the same staircase. In my humble opinion, is Heath Ledger's
Someone's
Joker.
Gonna top him eventually.
Well, I disagree.
I completely disagree. I mean, he's not Heath Ledger. He's not equal to
I'm not
him,
saying he is. I'm just saying
but in my opinion, I disagree with him. He's slightly below it. That's how great he is. The Riddler, I mean, he's not the Riddler to me because I've watched the Riddler my whole life, and that's not the Riddler. I've never seen a Riddler like that. Maybe you said in Earth One, I didn't read that stuff, but this is a Zodiac killer, a Seven killer. But with a much more sophisticated mind and a flair. He's compelling. He's brilliant. He's gruesome. I'm empathetic with him when he gives that speech. It's an unbelievable performance. So he is the Riddler in the movie, and I've accepted him as the Riddler. Going into it, I still have a hard time putting the two characters together, right? He's a different name. He's Edward Nashton. But I will tell you this right now, and this is 2 viewings in, that I've seen a lot of comic book movies. I've seen them all, a lot of them, right? And I think that there's no doubt that Heath Ledger stands atop, right? And then we talk about Molina, we talk about Defoe. I tell you what, man, I'd be hard pressed for anybody to name anybody else in any of these comic book movies or any movies, including Ra's al Ghul, including Jonathan Crane. This guy right now for me is right up there with those other guys, with Molina and with Defoe. Ledger is the difference between all things, anything ever topping The Dark Knight, and probably why nothing in my mind will ever top The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
It's because of Heath Ledger.
He's very good in this movie. I think the performance, like if we're going to talk about the film, I think the performance elevates the role. Because the role is kind of your basic serial killer villain. He's John Doe in Seven. He's the same guy. He's written the same way.
The same, right? Exactly.
So maybe that's a more complex film. For a comic book film, where I could see a conversation where he's top 5, top 6, but
dude, he outwits the Batman.
Well, yeah, but then
nobody outwits the Batman.
Sure,
not even the Joker outwitted the Batman.
Yes, he did.
Well, when he killed Rachel,
he won. He made Harvey Dent fall. He made Batman have to go for what he did to Harvey Dent. He made them have to cover up that thing to Harvey Dent.
This guy took down the whole Gotham City, man.
No, because they stop him at the end. Heath's
underwater.
Joker wins. Heath's Joker never loses. He wins.
It's underwater, the city.
But not all of it. His goal was to sink the city and kill everyone in that building.
God.
It didn't happen. Heath Ledger's Joker wins. Heath Ledger's Joker wins and still wins because but I don't hear no there.
This Riddler won too. He won a lot.
He didn't win. He didn't win.
Okay.
He didn't win. He did not win. But
we won't know until we see the sequel. I guess.
Not gonna know until we. So Dano, an argument for.
Son, I don't even know him anymore.
An argument for the 5th spot, but for me personally, and I'm only speaking to me, he's not in the same stratosphere as Heath Ledger's Joker.
Whoa, no,
not in the same. No one's in the same stratosphere as Heath Ledger's Joker.
I get it. I
in my
respect
humble
that.
opinion.
I
in my humble opinion, from character, performance, changed acting, changed the Oscars. Cannot change that.
I do.
For me, someone I really appreciated in this film, and I want to group.
Wait a second.
Some of these characters together.
I'm going to guess who you're going to go to
Who?
next. Jeffrey Wright.
No.
Colin Farrell.
Yes.
He was
okay, but that's like a second guess. That's easy. You're like, oh, I got it.
Easy, sweetheart.
Let's group everyone. All I'm gonna say is Colin Farrell, whole man, you are unrecognizable.
Oh,
he falls into the role. He becomes Oswald Cobblepot. He is the Penguin. He's my favorite performance of the movie.
Is he better than Danny DeVito?
Yeah, he's better than Danny DeVito. Sorry, Pete Vera. Yeah. Sorry, Pete Vera. I mean, I'm not into what he did in Returns. I love this one. It's more lines of what I see in the comics.
Sure.
The Iceberg Lounge is like a supporting character in the movie.
What
how much stops there.
I would love.
And that 44 Below. Who knew that there was a club inside the club?
That is a great club.
Did you know there's a club?
Did you know that, Mr. C? Is there a club behind the club? Under the club?
Batman. That Catwoman has to tell him. This is why I love this young Bruce Wayne, this
club
young
inside
Batman.
the club.
She has to explain to him, Z, it's a club within the club. It is the club.
I think he's fantastic. You guys could speak to him in just a sec, but just to rattle it off, I do think Jeffrey Wright was fantastic as Gordon. I want to see more. I thought John Turturro was a really good Carmine Falcone. His narrative stuff is all told to you, but he's such a good actor that he sells everything. He makes up for it. And then I did like Andy Serkis as Alfred. He actually was the source of most of the emotion in the film, but not enough Alfred in the movie. I need a lot more Alfred in. I think he will be integral in the evolution of Bruce Wayne. They are now united on the same page. Integral.
Okay.
To the development of Bruce Wayne.
Okay.
That's what I just said.
You're throwing some big words.
I said it twice. He will be integral. Have you heard the word
integral? You must have the script for the sequel.
Integral.
Because you must have Matt Reeves.
This is the most divided we've seen the two, and now they're together going into the film. So, Zeddy, of those group of characters, talk about who you want. Briefly touch on them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not gonna say that I was disappointed by Andy Serkis' Alfred. I was just a little. I would have loved to see more of him because he's such a great actor, and the relationship is so integral to not just Batman but Bruce Wayne, right? So it was crazy just how little he's actually in the movie too. It's like a 2-hour, nearly 3-hour movie, and he's probably only in it for like 5 minutes. He's in it less than 10 minutes, I would say. But the scenes that he is in, I will say, are pretty impactful. I
Yeah.
would say. So I guess in that case, it was, just making the most of what he was in it, in that case, yeah, it was a great performance. But, like I said before, he definitely does a lot of world building. You definitely gotta be patient a little bit, because I think a lot of the development of seeing the characters that you particularly want are coming. As far as Oswald Cobblepot, man, Colin Farrell should have been in House of Gucci. Never mind Jared Leto, man, because that was one of the greatest.
Played it better.
He would have played him absolutely better. Funniest line in the movie, almost wet my pants, when him and Gordon are just interrogating him, and he's like, "Who are you, bad cop, bad shit cop?" I thought that was absolutely hilarious. That's Penguin, man. He's a stooge at the beginning of the film, and then he sees his boss get taken down, and then it's the typical Fredo rising to power here. So you can probably see why he's probably getting an HBO Max show. Colin Farrell's terrific. Who wants to deny him more work, right? But just blown away in his sequence with the Batman and the Batmobile. Woof, woof. Man, that's a chef's kiss right there. But yeah, the supporting characters, they were good, man. Like I said, it's a long movie. Everybody gets a standout scene or two. I will say my favorite scene of the movie, and I know you two know what it is, but we'll get there later. But one of my favorites is the scene with Alfred and Bruce in the hospital, where you see the transition of Bruce actually becoming Bruce Wayne, I think.
Yeah.
When Alfred reaches out his hand to him and Bruce kind of accepts it. I think that's the start, I thought that was beautiful. So I'm very, I'm pretty satisfied with where I think Reeves is taking all these characters. It's a great setup, and I'm happy with all of it. But if I had to critique one thing, I would have loved to have seen a little bit more Alfred. Even if he's still like a more narcissistic version of Alfred, I still would have loved to see that, right? Because that plays a little bit more to Batman, of seeing an Alfred that's not really on Batman's side. An Alfred that's questioning Batman all the time. Because it is, if you've read the Earth One comics, it is very accurate to that, and it's not, I wouldn't say it's a strained relationship, but it's not a more loving relationship, I would say. So I think he's going to fix that. I really do.
Man, Jim Gordon, we've been blessed,
Yeah.
and we've been blessed, because Gary Oldman was, to me, he's still the king, but Jeffrey Wright is right there with him. And Batman's worked with Gordon in the other films too, right? But there's something about this one, the two of them together.
Yeah.
Again, the subtlety. I hate to repeat myself. The way they play off each other, earning their trust, growing together, but yet they both know. Man, when he tells him, I'll tell you what really hit for me. When he thinks that Riddler's onto him and that his time to Batman might be over and he's going to go see him, and he tells him, "You're a good cop."
Yeah.
That is freaking phenomenal. Jeffrey Wright, you're amazing. You've been amazing in everything I've seen you in. Westworld, even though I gave up, I think, on season 3 or whatever. Maybe I'll go back and watch it just because of you, sir. Cobblepot, absolutely amazing, absolutely incredible. I was the man that scoffed at the idea that they would they were mentioning that like a year ago, and I'm like, are they crazy? Dude, bring it all on. Circus was great, not enough of them, didn't really develop him a lot. But you guys really missed, unless you were bringing it up, the biggest character of the movie. The greatest character of the movie, with no disrespect to the city of Chicago, is Gotham City itself. This is the best Gotham City in any freaking Batman movie that I have ever seen. And I love my Chicago that it was completely represented in Batman Begins and Dark Knight, not Rises. And that's why Rises isn't as good, everybody. This Gotham is a living, breathing entity.
Yeah.
And you know what, guys? It's underwater. And we're going to find out in the sequel what the hell's going on in Gotham. The Penguin, that shot of him in the high rise looking down. This son of a bitch Penguin is carving out his territory. You better believe that it's going to be just a full mind-blown trip going forward. Gotham City, Matt Reeves, you gave us the definitive, ultimate comic book but yet real, not like Burton's, which was kind of still a little bit, like we say, it hasn't aged as well.
A little fantastic.
This is the OG Gotham City.
Great segue, and also there are some Chicago shots in this one. Technically, our city still holds up as Gotham pretty well because Matt Reeves used it. But perfect segue is just the visuals in this movie. It is the most stunning comic book film to date, in my humble opinion. I don't think it's particularly close. It's probably.
You thought it looked good?
It's probably one of the best looking films of the last year. Truly, going back to 2021. I mean, Academy Award nominator Greg Fraser, who just did Dune, who did Rogue One. I mean, man, he's a master cinematographer, and him and Reeves put together some of the most iconic Batman shots in film. There's this amber finish on the skyline and in some of the scenes. Right? It's right out of the pages. It's gorgeous. The rain-soaked, the Batmobile scene, which is probably one of the best scenes in the movie. Man, also like what it's such an intimidating Batmobile, huh? How it revs up so tension well. But this movie looks great. What are some of your favorite shots?
I gotta throw one thing in here because I know this can't happen. But you know our guy that plays Tim Drake in Titans, right?
Jay Lecurgo.
Yeah, I thought that scene where he runs away, it could tell the story later of where he becomes good and becomes a zealot. But obviously we can't get that because he's in Titans. But didn't you feel that when you were watching that? Didn't you fantasize in your head a little bit of headcanon?
Let's be honest.
Maybe this young man.
They never say his name.
Being Robin, but hold on. It's obviously not Dick Grayson.
But hold on. Let's say this.
Let's say it.
Like they just said, they didn't say his name, but also Titans will probably end as a series before the next film. Titans will be over.
But I don't think they would do the same thing, though.
Why not? Ryan Reynolds played Deadpool twice.
He was technically in the Batman first before he was in Titans.
Yeah. Not only was he, it wasn't even that he was terrified by him. I think he was in awe of him. And you could tell he wasn't really bad. He didn't really want.
Can I give you?
Please.
My other take is I would let him play Tim Drake again because they're probably going to do Dick in the movies.
They're going to do what in the movies?
They're probably going to do Dick Grayson. He got me on that one. He got me on that one.
It is not a kid's
trying
movie.
to insert himself in the show at times, and that one got me. I'll give it to him. I'm going to handshake you on that one.
Thank you very
much.
That
was a good one. He did the handshake. Well, where's Brian Brewster? He finally did the handshake.
Our guy.
Someone's going to scream
that. The movie. Did he see it?
I think they're going to.
All our guys.
We're recording this Wednesday.
You know what? It's a love fest right now. It's like Spider-Man. It's like No Way Home. We don't know what the GA thinks, but right now, us brotherhood of Bat people, us brotherhood, sisterhood, everything. It is just
the Bat third.
It is a Bat.
Gasmic.
Bat. That's a great Batgasmic thing going on right now.
Batgasmic.
And I feel like we're all united, you know what I mean? We might have a little thing here or there with the movie or whatever, but man, it feels so good right now. I'm just so happy and elated. I guess we'll know after the weekend, right? Because we are blessed as we're doing this. We've seen it like a lot of people saw it last night. We got lucky we saw it Monday, but it's funny. The movie really hasn't technically come out.
It really hasn't come out.
By the time we're recording this.
By the time we're recording,
when you see this, you will have seen the movie. Hopefully, visuals.
Come on, visuals. Man. The visuals are freaking every scene of the movie. Every damn scene.
True. Every frame.
It's when it's gruesome, it's terrifying. When it's beautiful, it's beautiful. Like you said, it's that coloring scheme. What did you say, amber?
Yeah, it's like an amber finish.
That club is the coolest club in the world.
Yeah, dude, that club is fire, dude.
I'm not a bad guy, but I want to be a member. I want there to be an Iceberg Lounge. It was just such a cool club.
What real life celebrity do you think you would see at the Iceberg Lounge?
Oh, you would see everybody there. You'd see little Leonard and Toby. Leonard and Toby are in there. I wouldn't let Holland, but I think Garfield's in there.
Man, Holland can't.
I think Holland's gonna. You know who else is in there?
Defoe.
What do they call him? Benifer?
Oh, dude, Ben Affleck and
Taylor got a table.
Easily.
I
bet a guy like Pete Davidson finds his way in there.
Yeah, Pete
MGK and Megan Fox find their way in there.
Cena's in there.
Dude, he built it.
Cena's in there.
Oh, dude, John Cena built it. Zeddy, some of your favorite visuals in the movie. You touched on the one scene that you really like. I'm gonna let you talk about it. Go ahead.
Yeah, I finally need my eulogy on this one. The flare scene, whatever you want to call it, the
Oh.
flare,
Yeah, it's a great scene.
the rescue flood scene, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this guy literally operates in the shadows the whole movie, and then when he's finally at like his lowest point, he lights up the flare and he's walking to all the people, and then he sticks his hand out and he reaches for like the mayor, but he really wants to get the kid first.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And if my memory serves me correctly, it's the same kid the whole movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The one he
Maybe
sees,
that
the
could be
one he
something
sees
out
at the
of-
beginning of the movie
I'm just kidding, man. I'm
that he
just-
wants to approach, the
Mitchell.
one that he saves in the funeral scene, and then he finally gets his moment to actually save him
Yeah.
in the flood. And it's like it's beautiful to me because it was like he literally captures Batman in that scene. He's literally making Batman a beacon of hope for people. And that he's not that in the movie, right? He's not that for that whole movie. So
No.
to me, that was his transition that I gotta be something more, right? I gotta be a hero. And I don't know, man, something about Batman just handing his hand out and people just him helping people out of like a flood. And then he's like they're following him out to safety.
Yeah.
That hits pretty freaking hard, man.
It's hard. I'm going to call
It's
your
freaking
scene
hard,
and
man.
raise you a scene
Yeah.
when he takes the kid at the end there and he's all full of dirt and he puts
Yeah.
it on the, what do you call that thing?
And she
Help
like
me out,
touches
I'm
his,
not
or
thinking.
touches
It's a
his
woman,
hand.
not a
Yeah.
kid.
The
But
woman,
okay.
the woman, yeah, the woman. Well, a young woman,
Yeah.
and the hope, and he's
Yeah.
and his monologuing.
Yeah.
I would like him to. I need him to help me. Maybe he can give me some monologues in my regular life and maybe inspire me to be better, because his monologue at the end is absolutely fantastic. That scene with the young woman on the stretcher reaching out to him, understanding what he needs to be, is just beautiful, Zeddy. So was yours.
Yeah.
But to get those kind of bookend, right? They're kind of back to back, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and I actually think the rooftop scene you're talking about should have ended the movie, but that's a different
Yeah, well,
conversation.
we
It
wanna
doesn't
talk
take
about
away
that.
from the movie.
Yeah, I did.
But I think that would have been a
I
perfect
do
way to
too,
end
yeah,
it and
yeah,
do
yeah.
some other editing things at the end.
Sure.
But hey, great scene. For me, it's every Batcat roof scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's straight out of Clayman stuff. I mean, it is
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous stuff. Real quick, I thought that the score was close to perfect.
Oh
I
man.
love his theme. I'm actually someone who, and I've seen this different take, I love that it was the same theme over and over.
Me too.
I love
Yeah.
how it kept playing.
Yeah.
I almost want more of
Haunting.
that in movies. Like you only hear their themes like a few times. They kept playing Riddlers, kept playing Catwoman's, kept playing Batman's. And I love during the Batmobile scene, it starts and stops a few times each time.
Yeah.
It shows his
Mhm.
car goes done, done, done.
Right.
Then it
Oh,
stops.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it shows done, done,
Absolutely, yeah.
stops. And then it kicks in when the big climax of that chase scene happens. Also, we've now seen for over a year and more than 6 months of
Yeah.
something in the way. Is it going to be in the movie? Actually,
Mhm. And it was. Yeah, it was great.
I do think it was extra to play it again at the end, but that first scene when it kicks in when he looks at the kid, because that's what's in the way of him, right? Is his
Yeah.
parents
Yeah.
and what happened to him. So brilliant song choice there. Did you think there would be any Pearl Jam in there?
No, I didn't.
I
I thought maybe there could be some Motley Crue, maybe. No, just kidding.
Well,
Maybe
it's-
little Foo Fighters.
They got a little feud going on, Pearl Jam.
Oh, they do.
That's why I thought maybe a little Motley Crue was gonna be in there. I will say one thing to you guys.
Yeah.
When he walks in, I said this to you, to Falcone, and the song that's playing is called "I Have But One Heart."
Oh yeah.
And that song is also from a movie that my son and I saw Sunday called The Godfather. It's a classic love song, but I do think Reeves, if we talk to him,
He'll say
He'll say
of Falcone.
he
Yeah.
got that from Don
The
Corleone.
Godfather.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's what he was to Gotham. the
Because
Don.
you remember he's playing Johnny Fontaine, and
Yes.
and
Yeah.
he sings the song.
Penguin's Fredo, man. 100%.
Look, the movie's damn near perfect, right?
Yeah.
So let's just each talk about one thing, maybe that not
This guy's
bothers, but
taking
at
over
the
the
end.
show now.
No. Here's the
This
thing.
guy's taking over the show now. Hold on. He's got to talk about the score.
Oh, the score. Yeah, I don't
see.
What's
This
he gonna
guy's
say?
taking over the
Here's
show.
Zeddy, the score was brilliant.
This guy's
He's
taking
gonna
over the
say it like
show. This guy's
Let
taking
me
over the
do
show.
Zeddy doing the
He's
score.
taking over the show because he does not actively listen. He's thinking of his next take and doesn't even care that we're here.
Can I do you, Zeddy, right now? You're like, the score was haunting and it was beautiful and it was just unbelievably transformative to. No, go ahead, Zeddy. I'm just kidding.
But here's my hot take. It's my favorite Batman score.
Yeah, me too.
Which, like, that put the gun to my head.
You better run.
Elfman
You better
and
get off the
Zimmer.
show right now.
But that's
Get
my
out of
hot
here.
take.
Go. Well, Zeddy,
That's
no.
my hot take. Is that it feels like the best score. Zeddy, quick thoughts on the score so that my dad could get to the point he wants to make.
I don't know if I was just mocked or if I was just appreciated. I don't know, but
Both. It's always both.
It's always both. It's always both. The score was euphoric. It's amazing. It's a character in itself. It's awesome. It's brilliant, Mr. C. It's very transformative. You know it. Probably the more times I see it, the more times it probably will be my favorite score. Let's just be blunt. Let's call a spade on that one. It's amazing. Giacchino does not miss.
Man, he is.
He doesn't miss. And even with like No Way Home's that slaps.
I'm not going to talk anymore. I'm going to let you guys finish off the show. This is my last thing.
Well, no, there's still a lot more time.
The scene with the Riddler and Barry Keoghan's Joker, right? I mean, just like a fanboy's dream.
Yeah.
I thought if I got one nitpick of the movie, just being a little overly critical, I think we all agree the third act might have been a little bit, like you said, monologue heavy, some things, but seeing it the second time, I liked the movie better. I really did. And I'm not so worried about what everybody else thinks about it now, because I know our brotherhood, like I said, our sisterhood, we're all in on this thing together.
Well, our first screening was dead.
Our first screening
very awkward
was a flat crowd.
I thought you would have thought
we were at a private thing, and I think most of those people weren't there for Batman.
It was a press screening, and I think there was also the marketing company who put it on.
Yeah,
had
they were wonderful people, but they weren't Batman fans.
Yeah, but we were.
So here's the deal. I thought the movie. I agree with in my own head where I would have liked the movie to end more on a boom.
Yeah,
like Batman Begins did. Like The Dark Knight did.
Like Rises does.
And if there's one thing in this movie that it didn't bother me, doesn't ruin the movie, I'm just talking to you as the Batman fan, they didn't get you with the zinger.
No,
walking out. It ends, and you're waiting. There's really no after credit scene, and then there's that little thing at the very end with the Riddler. But that was the one thing for me that might have just, and I loved it. I'm nitpicking.
Man, it's a beauty.
I'm absolutely nitpicking now. But if there's one thing and maybe he didn't want to be like Nolan and do that, Z, but I would have liked that Joker scene maybe at the end
or the mid credit.
Because
you're right, the bang would have been the monologue as he's looking up.
Yes.
Because the movie opens, and let's talk about how brilliant his voiceover. Oh my God, it sets the tone, dude. That when he starts talking is when I turn to you and laugh, not because it was funny, because I'm like, holy shit, what are we in for?
Exactly.
I would have ended the movie when he's looking at the roof. I would have shown a longer scene of him helping people, and then play some of the Catwoman scene with him, because I do like how they're like racing each other. It's cute, and they go their separate ways. But he looks up. He's telling you he's got to be Hope. Play the score one more time, end the movie, the Batman, cut to Arkham, leave with the laughs, fade to black as they're laughing, which my boy Barry Keoghan, he's the Joker. I'm so happy. And he nails it.
He is not mad as a hatter, that's for sure.
It. He looks, from what I could tell, he looks cool, very scarred. He's just talking. He's Irish, but he's just talking.
Last thing I'm going to say, I'm done. Thank God they didn't kill Paul Dano, that he's alive.
Well, hold on. We'll get into that later.
Okay.
There's a theory. Stay to the end of the show for theories. Man, yes. But I do like him riding away from Catwoman, but not at the end of the movie. No. Not at the end of the movie. I think you could have edited something together cooler. One thing I want to talk about and get your thoughts on, Zeddy, is to just touch on the third act real quick. I think the first two acts of this film are a masterpiece, and I think the third act it is the weakest of the three, plays better on a rewatch. Is there anything in this movie that you think they could have taken out or they should have done differently, or maybe that they could have added to elevate the movie? So we're talking about maybe the editing at the end. Is there something for you like that maybe happens earlier? Maybe is it you want to see more fighting? You wanted to see, maybe was the flood too much for you, etc.
Man, that's a good one. You know, it's like the more you watch it, the more you might actually appreciate it, to be quite honest. You know, the first time, you're always like, oh, maybe he should have done this, maybe he should have done that. You're always looking for little details like that. I think on a second rewatch, I've kind of understood it a little bit more, where it's just he is very in tone with this whole movie, I will say, Reeves. You know, it's like he really does stick to the tell me but not showing me aspect. You know, he really does go for dialogue over action a lot in the movie, you know. So to me, it was a little bit weird that he kind of takes down Riddler, and this is close to what, like 215 in the movie, maybe around there. And then there's, you know, the Riddler cult, whatever you want to call him, and that's like the comic book third act of the movie, right? That's to me is that he doesn't actually take down the Riddler. He takes down, you know, a mirage of the Riddler, you know, and then the real Riddler is, you know, locked away to be determined. But I actually, and I don't know how this would have played out. I don't know if you guys might disagree with me on this one, but I don't know if you could have actually flipped the Batman and Dano scene to maybe the end and then cut to the Joker. Like where Dano's just going off on him, and you see like the flipped in Dano's performance. I actually think Batman visiting Dano at the end in Arkham would have made for a better ending scene. And then you make a post-credit scene or a mid-credit scene of Barry Keoghan's Joker going like, huh, that Batman, you know, or something like that, right? And you could have,
Not a bad.
I think you probably could have set that up a little bit
You
better.
you let the bombs go off in a different way, like before
Yeah.
he meets.
The only thing is that whole
Because
scene
it's no
is
man's
about-
land. I don't know.
That whole scene is about him thinking he's going to be outed as Batman.
Yeah.
And it's only after that whole first couple minutes of that scene, he's waiting. He's looking at the cameras. He's like, I'm done. And then he realizes when
Which
Paul
is
Dano
great acting
says,
by him
we
again in the
missed
suit.
him.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, again, when you look at that Pattinson, that whole scene, you're
Dude,
so uncomfortable. You're
the
like,
way
it's
he
over.
react-
They know you're Batman. You're going to be exposed. And then when he realizes,
and like the way he reacts.
then he gets cocky, right? Then he's a badass, right? He's a little bit
You're
timid
just a
there for a
psychopath.
little bit, right?
You're just a psychopath.
Yeah, I said my thing. I don't have any other complaints other than I would have liked to have been left with just a little more of a zinger.
So I have two more questions before we wrap here. You have now seen so many Batman things.
Yeah.
Where do we go from here?
Well, where we go from here is super
Where
exciting.
do we go?
Because where we go from here is, I'm going to let you talk about the theory, but where we go from here is we've got the Joker, the greatest villain ever in the history of fictional villains, on the rise. We've got one of the great up-and-coming new performances by Paul Dano, right there. Those are classic Batman villains, right? We've got the great performance by Zoe as Catwoman. We've got Colin Farrell, superb as the Penguin. I mean, do I have to say where we're going?
No.
Wherever they take us, wherever this man takes us, Matt Reeves. And I hope you're feeling better because I heard you got COVID, sir.
Yeah.
You, sir, gave me an unbelievable, jaded man who thinks he could never really see anything anymore that could top anything. And I don't think anything that comes the rest of this year is going to be as good as what I just saw. Not in this fashion.
Here's all I'll say, and then I'll turn it to Zeddy because I just want to piggyback off you. Earlier, we talked about exposition and some editing stuff. Let's not, and I mean, I missed my opportunity to do this earlier. Matt Reeves directs the hell out of this movie.
Yep.
It's brilliant. It's these little things that maybe because of COVID they had to tell you more instead of show you more. Every director sometimes gets cute with the runtime and the editing at the end. Like we talk about how like Tarantino does his movies need to push 3 hours every time. Probably not, but he's a filmmaker. You see the passion in every frame. It's compelling. Even though I was saying some of the reveals and the twists aren't there, it is compelling enough, and it's one of the best Batman stories ever told because of the flip.
Yep.
And especially in live action, it's one of the best live action Batman stories ever told. Zeddy, where do we go from here? In a
That-
sequel or three?
Yeah. I mean, it is a no-brainer. You're gonna see the Joker. If it's not obvious by this point, I would almost take a for sure bet you'll see Paul Dano's Riddler again. I think he might be like the Cillian Murphy Scarecrow that's kind of maybe looming in the background that might be in each movie, but he's not a big villain character. I think that could be really cool. They're talking a lot about the Court of Owls and these kind of press things that people seem to be asking him questions, and I don't know if the cast would really answer that if they're not in the cards. I can kind of see this thing, and Nikko, maybe walk me through this a little bit because I don't want to exactly go this way. You might phrase this better, but I'm almost wondering if we're gonna get villains that are similar to being personal to Thomas Wayne. Like I could see a scenario in which, and I know we talked a little bit about this last night, like say a Mr. Freeze, but he worked for Thomas Wayne. Victor Freeze wanted to help save his wife, and maybe
It's like the Tony Stark effect.
it would be like the Tony Stark
Wayne.
effect.
But it's better now.
But it's better in here.
Yeah.
Let me.
So that's what I think, Thomas Wayne connected to the Court of Owls. I don't know. So I think that's where you're going with.
First and foremost, I'm just excited for Barry Keoghan's Joker.
Yes.
I don't think Batman can exist without a Joker, in my humble opinion. And you know me. I mean, if you guys have seen me on Twitter, I'm a big Barry Keoghan fan. I love a lot of his films, from Dunkirk to Killing of a Sacred Deer to American Animals. I just think he's a great freaking actor. And and him and Colin Farrell are tight. They've made like 2 or 3 movies together. Yeah. I love, real quick, I know he's Irish, so if you don't know who he is, he's Druig from Eternals. I know you guys have all seen that movie, which he's my favorite character in that film too. He is Irish, but I love how they just let him talk in his American accent. What Ledger did is untouchable still, because he kind of made that higher pitch voice. Leto, we know, did his little honey. Oh, you're with me now, Batman.
Joker is my name too.
And then Joaquin was mostly himself as Arthur Fleck, but just did a higher pitched voice. I like how they just let him talk.
Yep.
And his laugh was subdued but creepy as hell, very light. Yeah. I'm down for more Joker. Is Joker going to be the Thanos, where he slowly recruits the villains and does a big breakout in the third film? Is he the main in the second? I think that would be cool. Who knows? Man. So shout out to our boy on the show, Zach Nicholson. Where are you? He ran this theory by me. I was talking to him about the movie last night because he saw it last night, and we were talking about it a little bit after the movie, just gushing about it, because if you can't tell, we love this film. I know we're analyzing it, and when you start analyzing it, you can't really tell, but we loved it, and we're both talking about it, and he caught something that I didn't, and then our other good pal, Josh Legurn, tweeted it today without spoilers, but then I DM'd him. I kind of had an idea. So Zach, you put this in my mind, and now I can't unsee it. And Josh, apparently you saw this too. You guys got eyes. The reporter killed was Elliot. The last name was Elliot. Then they flash Hush on the screen. It says Hush. And I thought that was a fan moment. Maybe we'll get Thomas Elliot in the future. But wait, the Riddler's an orphan. Who were his parents? And he had a bunch of different identities. Was he really Edward Nashton, or is Paul Dano Thomas Elliot? And I'll raise you the Cillian Murphy Scarecrow. Is he going to be a main cast member through this entire story?
I think so.
Because, and I haven't read Hush in like 6 to 7 years, and the Riddler is such an integral part of it. He is that red herring. What if they're doing you said this on the phone earlier, because I called, how the animated film has Hush actually be the Riddler? What if they flip it this time? And it's this Thomas Elliot who actually learns that Bruce Wayne's Batman. It goes back to the Waynes, and he ends up being maybe still the main villain by the third movie. I think it would be really awesome and a different choice for these comic book movies to have this same villain progress.
Mm-hmm.
And to always be kind of the antithesis of the main character could be really freaking epic.
Sounds good to me, man.
right?
Yep.
So who knows? Who knows?
I like that.
Now I have to ask this because
Okay.
we've seen it twice.
Yep.
So other people are gonna have to sit on it more because you know a movie comes out and I respect all opinions. The movie comes out, people are excited. There's blasphemous takes, like Zeddy said, like Paul Dano's on the same plane as Ledger. I'm just kidding. I love you.
There's people that say it's not for kids, which is unusual, huh?
Oh, I would take
No,
8-year-olds to see this movie. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Where
does it rank?
All right, so if I start
Right now, through 2 viewings a day
Yeah.
removed. So we've had time. We've podcasted about it once already, too. So this is our second discussion.
So if The Dark Knight is my 10.
It's ranked 10.
And no, Dark Knight is my 10. It's a 10 out of 10.
It's 10 out of 10.
And my Batman Begins is like a 9.5. Right now, I've got this tied with Begins, but I'm still leaning that it might be slightly better than Begins.
Okay, so
but that's where it's at.
So 2 or 3.
Yes, 2 or
For
3.
you, okay.
Absolutely, yes.
I love
it. Absolutely.
Zed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this movie to me, especially on a second viewing, and maybe it goes higher the more I see it because I am going to see this a lot more times. It's at a 9.5 for me. You know, I think it's a nearly flawless movie. It kind of falters a little bit in the second and third act, but it's not nearly enough to degrade my excitement for the whole movie whatsoever. I'm going to say he manages to somehow perfect the origin without actually doing the origin. But Begins is still my all-time favorite Batman movie, so I still got to have this. Begins, the Batman, the Dark Knight. That's what my top 3 looks like.
That's fair. It's a good call, dude.
You put this over the Dark Knight?
Sorry.
I respect that.
I respect it. He always does.
I respect that.
Well, he puts Begins over the Dark Knight, you know.
Which I also respect.
I respect it.
Whoa.
Yeah.
This is me.
I'm a man of the theatrics. What could I say?
Hearing the Dark Knight is being third on a list, it just like,
yeah,
it feels weird. No, I love it. It feels weird.
Zeddy, it feels weird, but I'll
You'll allow it.
Still feels weird as a tear comes down my eye as I say goodbye. No, dude, I fucking love that. And if anyone comes at
there's about to be a new co-host.
Oh, stop it. I swear on every show. Hey, if you're just joining us, I sometimes swear.
I don't know, 11 minutes.
12 minutes. So. I'm surprised you could read that without your little cheaters.
I can't.
I'm just kidding. For me, Dark Knight, still untouchable. This movie is close to perfect, close to flawless, close to the M-word masterpiece. It's close. To me, I think it's the most Batman movie to exist. It is. From a comic book, from a detective, it is the most Batman movie. It also has the most of Batman in it. Mm-hmm. And it has arguably the best Batman in costume, has one of the most compelling stories in film, has maybe the best ensemble because there's so many characters. I think it's going to depend on the day. It's tied with Begins for number 2, but for me, I might lean more Begins. So this might fall to 3, or it might stay at 2. Maybe I need to watch Begins and see this a third time. We'll see, because I've seen Batman Begins 90 times. But I also consider Batman Begins top 5 or 6 comic book film of all time, too.
Of course. Yeah.
So that's how in high regard. We love this movie. We fully endorse it. It was worth the wait. Did you guys think it would be this good when we started our podcast? And the first thing we talked about was Affleck stepping down and Pattinson getting cast?
No. Because I'm one of those guys that we've seen so much Batman that I'm always wondering. And when Matt came out and talked about we're going to see a new Batman, a different thing, my first inclination was like, I mean, we've kind of seen all the Batman,
and yet
not only is this so innovative and fresh, what's to come is even going to be. I think we got a shot here.
Yeah,
that he's going to even. I know my son's going to get mad at me, but I think there's a shot he might have one that might top the Dark Knight.
He might. Not this one, but maybe for me.
I think
and the trilogy has a chance to be the best Batman trilogy ever.
Yeah.
If he sustains this quality through 3 films, absolutely. But guys, what a show.
Yeah.
What a breakdown. Tell us what you thought about it. If you see it,
please
leave the comments. We'll respond. We're looking to be way more active in YouTube. We have tweets out there. Come follow us on Twitter. And come follow our podcast as well. So we're just going to do quick individual plugs and then get out of here. Dad, plug yourself.
You can follow me at N. Caruso Jr. and N. Caruso Jr. on Twitter. And, just follow this podcast because this started because of this movie and Justice League. And I'm going to tell you guys something right now, man. to go from March to March
Oh,
to get Zack Snyder's Justice League, which I think was absolutely one of the great ensemble team up movies that stands alongside anything, to go through this whole year with the Marvel shows, culminating in No Way Home, of course, the Star Wars stuff. From this year, from March to March, gentlemen, a 57-year-old man, I've never seen a run like this. And if it never gets better than this, I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it.
I'm going to, like, everything to me is house money. Doctor Strange.
Oh, yeah. At this
I got
point,
my guy Hawkman coming and Black Adam. We're going to get the OG Keaton returning in The Flash and Aquaman and Marvel. And God knows we might get Tobey Maguire. We might get Venom versus Spider-Man. But, gentlemen, this has been a run of all runs. It's better than 08 when we got the Dark Knight and Iron Man. I'm telling you, gentlemen,
by far.
it is the
By
run
far.
of all runs. March 2021 to March 2022, historical.
And we said this on the pod months throughout the last couple of months. We got an all-time Spidey movie. Did we get an all-time Batman film? I think we got an all-time Batman film.
Yes.
So that's 2, and then we think Snyder Cut's all-timer. That's 3 all-timers in a year. Wow.
But then you got all the shows and everything, and you got
Which
the
has
Star
been
Wars
a great
stuff.
year.
But for Spidey and Batman,
W's.
who define me,
W's.
I think all of us here, I mean, I don't know about you, Z, but I know you and me, they're kind of, I know you like the Flash and everything, but
W's.
these two goats, these two guys that battle it out,
It's hard to go higher from here.
man,
Hard to go higher from here.
beautiful.
Hard to go higher from here.
Yeah.
Zed, plug away, brother.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, man. Yeah, you guys said it beautifully, right? To get, Spider-Man be the king of cinema and then get a return to form for Batman, man, that's awesome, man. I felt a certain type of energy with this movie that I didn't think I was going to feel, but I was anticipating I was going to feel. So, real quick, thank you, gentlemen, as always. This was a 2-year in the making podcast review. It's why we started this show. It was a 5-year journey getting to this point. The movie delivered for me. So thank you, Matt Reeves. And please get a speedy recovery. So I know you said you're healthy, but we want you nice and well, young man. So on that note, you guys can follow me on Twitter at Nick Zednick. But most importantly, I guys want you to follow Vigilante1939 on Twitter. And like Nikko said, please like, share, and subscribe. And thank you all for listening. This was a hell of a journey. I can get a sigh of relief here. And on to the next one, because now we've reviewed 2 of 3 pillars, guys. We did Zack Snyder's Justice League. We did the Batman. And now it's going to cap off with the Flash. That's amazing.
It's going to be fun to talk about it now with people and friends and other shows and stuff now. And like, we got our big one out of the way. So now, like, when we talk about it, we structure it. So now we just kind of get to talk about it and have fun and not worry about takes and sounding smart, which we never do in the first place.
Of course.
You know. So great to talk about it. Please follow at Vigilante 1939 podcast here and on Twitter. If you listen to the podcast, please keep supporting. Leave a rate and review, especially on Apple. It helps me. We'll read it on air. We'll send you something.
Yep.
We're also trying to get larger on Spotify too. Spotify is much better at putting you in the algorithm, so give us some love there as well. Please keep supporting our YouTube page. Zeddy and our good friend Chris Evans from Gathering of the Geeks podcast do The World's Finest every time there's an episode of Superman and Lois. We're going to keep doing these YouTube style reviews, both video and audio. So like, subscribe, comment, talk to us, tweet at us. You could also follow me personally everywhere at Nikko Caruso, NIKKOCARUSO. I also have a review on TikTok of this film as well. So just show love to us 3 and we'll show love to you back. So Zeddy, bring us home with your words as always.
Oh man, as Michael Keaton's Batman always says, I want you to tell all your friends about me.
Oh, this guy's hilarious.